But hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Anderson. I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. What was that? Saturday, we went over doctor's opinion. Cool stuff. Really, really nice stuff. Can you hear me? Thumbs up, please, if you can hear me. What's up, Pete? Can you guys hear me? Alright, cool. So, I kind of been like trying to determine on what to do here on like to go into Bill's story, because working with a guy or whatever the situation is, I would have him first. I would explain what any length looks like, just like I said. Then I would go into Bill's story and have him go over the first 8 pages of Bill's story and highlight and underline what they relate to about how Bill thought, felt, and drank. And then I was going like, okay, just because that's the only reading that my guys would do by themselves. And a lot of times I go through the reading with them anyway, just to give them a better description of what's going on. So we can do Bill's story, at least the first 9 pages anyway. And then go into there's a solution, but I could either start at Bill's story or start in there is a solution. So I'll let the first one comment on that, determine what we're going to do. Let's leave it up to him. Anyway, let's pray in. Just take a deep breath. Father God, just ask that you come, man, just come into our lives, especially for those of us that are lost. Thank you for finding us. Now that we're found, like I just want to get lost in you now. So allow me to get lost in you. Allow all of us to like just think about you, connect with you, and get lost in you, and give me the strength to carry your message and not my own. Amen. So, all right. We'll go into the Bill story. So when you think about like, yo, what do you know about Bill's story? And you're like, okay, man, well, I don't know. What do you know about 1934? Nothing. I don't know anything about 1934. I have no experience whatsoever with 1934. And then it's like, what do you know about being a stockbroker? And I'm like, well, a little. I mean, something, but not on that side of things. I'm not that good with it. But when you think about like how Bill felt, thought, and drank, then a lot of stuff starts to come to light to you. So let's begin. So we're on chapter 1, Bill's story. And maybe this will bring a lot of stuff to light for you. And what you're looking for on the relativity, it's got nothing to do with like being a stockbroker or the outside stuff that's going on. The same thing with the same difficulty and us sharing the same common peril isn't that I lost everything or I've been to jail too and I relate to you because you've been to jail or any stuff. The relativity is like up here. Like that's how I relate. Like I think in every thought. Every single thought of there's no thought of like, let's go to the beach. There's no thought of like, man, let's go to the club tonight. For me anyway, if there's a thought of going to the club, it's like, I'm going there, hurry up, try to grab something, and that's just what it is. Every thought of every day, of all day, even in my sleeping moments, is more. That's it. There's no other thoughts that happen. But what happened? What took place? So the truth is, you could do this this same activity with any of the stories in the back. Any of the 42 personal stories you can kind of do the same thing with. So, chapter 1, Bill's story. War fever ran high in the New England town to which the new young officers from Plattsburgh were assigned. And they were flattered when the first citizens took us into their homes, making us feel heroic. For me, I got that underlined. Why do I have that underlined? Is because that was my older brother and his friends. They welcomed me into their homes and it made me feel heroic. I was like, I'm hanging with the older guys. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. It was beautiful. There was love, applause, right? We were messing with women. There was some love going on. There was applause. There was people like, yo, check Matt out, check him out, he's going hard, or whatever. There was war. We got into fights and stuff like that at parties. We hung out all the time. Moments sublime and intervals hilarious. We used to crack up, all that stuff, We did all the same stuff. I was part of life at last. Heck yeah, I relate to that. Of course I relate to I'm a part of life at last. I got to hang with the older people and I was finally a part of, and I wasn't sitting on the sidelines or anything like that. They allowed me into the circle. And in the midst of the excitement, I discovered liquor and drugs, and that's how it always began. In the midst of the excitement, they're like, yeah, man, come on, shoot some pool, stay up with us, let's sneak out at night and we'll go over Mikey T's house and hang out and we'll sit in the basement, and then they're drinking and I'm like, oh man, well, me too. Of course I discovered liquor. That's what people were doing, and it didn't matter. I wanted to do it too. I discovered liquor. I forgot the strong warnings and the prejudices of the people concerning drink. I got all this highlighted, underlined. And I forgot the warnings and the prejudice that people told. I don't care who you are. If you went to school at any time in your life, you heard the warnings and the prejudice. You heard the warnings and the prejudices and the prejudgment of people that got high and used drugs and alcohol. You heard. We had all type of people. We had people like Dare come in. You had different types of groups that came in. Dare was like a kind of like the police, the state police department would come in. They would show us different forms of substances and say, yo, don't do this or do. And they actually showed us a picture of a car of a neighborhood drug dealer from my way. It was like, don't mess with this guy and all this stuff. And then also we had I grew up in the 90s. I'm the 90 era type dude before I went to the joint. So we had we had all type of evidence around us. We seen the people on the streets and they wasn't doing good, and we'd be laughing at them and look at this guy just getting high, going crazy, and then we'd call them fiends because I'm from a area, the outskirts of the city, and I remember we had movies like New Jack City. We had movies like and Pookie and them. We had all type of movies that told us and showed us exactly what would happen if I ventured into this. However, when other people were doing it, it seemed like it was the right thing to do, and it didn't seem like it was that harmful because I'm watching them, and they looked, and some of them did. They don't have the same. Their experience is much different from mine when I pick up a drink or a drug. So I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys are they're cool, and I'll just be cool with them. I'll just smoke weed and drink too. And you would hear stuff like that. People would tell us like that, I smoke weed, man, that's it. And I'm like, okay, well, I can just smoke weed and that's it too. We landed in England. Or excuse me, let's not forget this part. In time, we sailed for over there. That was me going to the joint. I was very lonely and again turned to alcohol. I wanted to get any substance I could get my hand on in the joint. We landed in England. I visited Winchester Cathedral. Much moved, I wandered outside. My attention was caught by a doggerel on an old tombstone. Here lies a Hampshire grenadier who caught his death drinking cold small beer. A good soldier is near forgot. Rather he dies by musket or pot. Not pot, but pot. Anyway. Ominous warning, which I failed to heed. I failed to heed anybody I remember even walking down the tracks behind my neighborhood. We had a set of tracks. And I remember walking back there and we used to discuss drugs as kids on our way to school or something like that, and we heard about crackheads and stuff like that, and the crack epidemic was like really heavy and stuff, and I heard people talking about that, the glass pipe, and you hit that, you're hooked for life. And we even talked about, and all of us were like, I ain't never going to do nothing like that. And I remember saying that. I failed to heed all the warnings. People at Dare, the movies, my family, people who I seen around the neighborhood doing the same stuff that wasn't looking so good. 22 and a veteran of foreign wars. I went home at last. I got released. I got released from prison. I fancied myself a leader, for had not the men of my battery given me a special token of appreciation. I got my stars and my stripes from the joint. I'm the man. I'm home now. Yo, check me out. Here I am, My talent for leadership, I imagine, would place me at the head of vast enterprises. I just knew I was going to be the man, which I would manage with the utmost assurance. I took a night law course and obtained employment as an investigator for a surety company. The drive for success was on. I got this underlined. I proved to the world I was important. Oh yeah. I seen other people to someone growing up like in the hood, you seen other people that were like, people that were doing good, outside stuff. You don't know what's going on in here with them. But you don't know that. You connect success and importance to reputation and how people view you and are people talking about you. It had nothing to do with in here or what you did for someone. It's kind of like where I grew up is like what you did to people and how, is how you were known. And I wanted to prove to the world that I was important. My work took me about Wall Street little by little. I became interested in the market. I became interested in the market highlighted. I became interested in what was going on the corner. I got interested in like what people were doing and how people were selling drugs and stuff like that. And I got interested. It's a market, but just an illegal one. I got interested in the illegal market. Many people lost money or went to jail or died. I got that highlighted, but some became very rich. Why not I? I didn't care about Mike and all them going to jail or them doing that much time or them getting murdered or him dying or any of that stuff. All I seen was like, check his car out. Look at him. That's freaking nice. I'm going to do that too. And I seen it was classified in money, women, and respect. And we called it the juice back then. And I wanted the juice. I studied economics and business as well as law. I ain't studied none of that stuff, but I can relate to it. I studied what they were doing. Potential alcoholic that I was, I nearly failed my law course. At one of the finals, I was too drunk to think or even write. I'm sure you got that highlighted. Though my drinking was not yet continuous, it disturbed my family. It says wife, but it disturbed my family. It did. We had long talks. Sit down, Matt. Let's talk. I've had all that stuff happen with many different people. We had long talks where I would still their forbearance by telling them that men of genius conceived their best projects when drunk and could drive better. That was the most, and that the most majestic constructions of philosophic thought were so derived. I can just think better. I communicate better. I can talk to anybody. I need it for this line of work to be able to like feel that ease and comfort, so I can like just swindle people and like hustle and still feel that false pride and ego, that liquid courage or not liquid courage, and feel great about it. Same stuff, man. By the time I completed the law course, I knew that law wasn't for me. I can definitely relate to that. By the time I got out of jail and I seen everything that was going on, I knew that following the law wasn't for me. I had made my mind up. I'm going to be a criminal drug. I just knew I was going to be the next Nino Brown. The inviting maelstrom of Wall Street, and I just crossed out Wall. The inviting maelstrom of the street had me in its grip. Neighborhood drug dealers and, business and financial leaders were my heroes. Neighborhood drug dealers were my heroes. Out of this alloy of drink and speculation, I commenced to forge the weapon that one day would turn in its flight like a boomerang and all but cut me to ribbons. I had no idea what I was in for. None of us did. We had this. I mean, it's us. We're like, oh man, this is me. Like it might have got you like that, but it ain't gonna get me like that. Oh, man, living modestly, my wife and I saved $1,000. It went into certain securities and then cheap, but rather unpopular. Certain securities, I went from like people were selling like marijuana and cocaine, right? And I ended up selling something that nobody else had. Whatever I had to do. I rightly imagined that someday they would have a rise. One day everybody's going to love this stuff. I failed to persuade my broker friends to send me out looking over factories and managements. When I started to sell narcotics and stuff like that, a lot of people was like, I'm not doing that. But my wife and I decided to go anyway. I had developed the theory that most people lost money in stocks through ignorance of markets. I did have some experience with the stock market in 2008 when I was in jail, but my dad had access to my money, and I remember telling him to put money in stocks, Ford, and everything was at an all-time low. We were in a recession. And I did. I lost money. I made a lot, but I lost money too. I discovered many more reasons later on. It wasn't just about throwing money. Anyway, I relate to that. We gave up on our positions and off we roared on a motorcycle, sidecar stuff with tent, blankets, change of clothes, and 3 huge volumes of financial reference services. They took off. That's what Bill did. Let's just keep it on me. Our friends thought a lunacy commission should be appointed. People thought I was nuts. I'd get out of jail, I'd come home, I'd do it again, and then I'd get out, and then I'd do it again. Then all of a sudden, like, people were like, yo, you are freaking nuts. Why are you doing this again? Here he is, all lit up again. Perhaps they were right. It probably was right. I was a freaking nutcase. I could not stop. It ain't that I just had no choice or control or power. I had some success at speculation, so we had a little money. But we once worked on a farm for a month to avoid drawing on our own small capital. That was the least honest manual labor on my part for many a day. They end up running into the money, man. At the end of it, my reports to Wall Street procured me a position. There was use of a large expense account. And that's kind of what happened back in the day. And this is how Bill became successful. Bill went out and they would go over managements. Like, you don't want to just put your stock in anything. He was the one that would go out and look over the companies and go and look at their books and stuff like that to see if it was a good company to put money in. Then he would call it in, and then to see if it's growing or is it something that's going to grow more, all that type of stuff as far as business goes. The exercise of an option brought in more money, leaving us with a profit of several $1,000s for that year. That's a ton of money back then. For the next few years, fortune threw money and applause my way. I had arrived. For me, I got out of prison one particular time. I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I ended up selling drugs and doing music. I got into the music business. Was actually a rapper. And I did well. I did well doing that stuff. And I was just like, man, everybody was like, yo, check Matt out. And I'm like, I felt like I had arrived, man. I had arrived. Or even just smoking the weed. My first time even smoking marijuana was just like unbelievable. Drinking beer, drinking liquor, I was just like, oh man, Mad Dog 2020. And I come from the era of 40s and 22-ounce beers, Mickey's, all that stuff. My judgment and ideas were followed by many of the tuna paper millions. The great boom of the 20s was seething and swelling. This is 2008 for me. 2000, we're at 10 now, it's seething and swollen. Drink was taking an important and exhilarating part in my life. I got that underlined. It was becoming the most important thing. I wasn't doing anything without some form of drugs or alcohol attached to it. I'm sure that's your story as well. It was taking an important, and of course I got that highlighted. There was loud talk in the jazz places uptown. Everyone spent in thousands and chattered in millions. That was my circle. Haters could hate and be damned. Scoffers could scoff and be damned. Haters could hate and be damned. I made a host of fake-ass friends. Fair-weathered friends. I made a host of fake-ass friends. I'm sure that's your story as well. That should be highlighted. My drinking assumed more serious proportions, continuing all day and almost every single night. Oh, man. The remonstrances of my friends terminated in a row, and I became a lone wolf. Nobody wanted to mess with me when I was getting high. Everybody was like, yo, especially when I ventured into harder substances like crack and dope. Like everybody else was kind of like, yo, like we don't do that. And all of a sudden they placed themselves on a pedestal beyond me, and it kind of made me a lone wolf. Like I was like, if I can't be accepted here, then I'll go and do it on my own. And that's what I did. My drinking assumed more serious proportions, continuing all day and all night, man. So there were many unhappy scenes in our sumptuous apartment. I know you got that underlined. We all had unhappy scenes at home and apartments and driveways and cars and stores. And there had been no real infidelity, for loyalty to my wife helped at times, and extreme drunkenness kept me out of those scrapes. As far as Bill goes, his wife tells a different story, but I ain't going to get into that. I don't have experience with that. I cheated and lied and stole and everything. There was definitely infidelity with anyone who I was with, and if I was with them, it was especially in the beginning, it was because I needed something from you. Selfish self-centeredness, the root. So, in 1929, I contracted music fever. It says golf fever. And when it says golf fever, it's really talking about golf. Like, golf. He went at once to the country. We went at once to the country, my wife to applaud, while I started to overtake Walter Hagen. Walter Hagen was, you're talking about big money stuff and big Willie guys, man. These guys were prominent people in their community. Everyone knew them. They were very respected, looked up to individuals. Walter Hagen was like Tiger Woods of his time. He's like not going out and playing some ordinary dude. He's playing against Walter Hagen. Look him up. Liquor caught up with me much faster than I came up behind Walter. Yeah, we all know. Liquor and drugs always come up behind me faster than I can catch up with anything. I began to be very jittery in the morning. Of course I got that highlighted, underlined. I became jittery in the morning. I was getting the shakes and the twitches and the uncomfortability, the restless, irritable, discontented feeling, unless I had the ease and comfort that came at once, by taking a few drinks or drugs. Music permitted drinking. This is the truth of golf, but music for me permitted drinking every day and every night. It was fun to crawl around the exclusive course and studios that I was at that inspired such awe and be around like Class B famous rappers, right, that had music all over the place, and it was cool for me to that they inspired me when I was growing up, and now like I'm like doing shows with them and stuff like that, and it was crazy. I acquired the impeccable coat of tan which one sees on the well-to-do. I don't even have to explain that. It's just for my story. I got that highlighted. The local banker watched me whirl fat checks in and out of his till with amused skepticism. I didn't go to the bank too much, but my mother's seen it. My mother and father were like, yeah, what are you doing, Abruptly, in October 1929, all hell broke loose on the New York Stock Exchange as the beginning of the Great Depression. After one of those days of inferno, I wobbled from a hotel bar to a brokerage office. It was 8 o'clock, 5 hours after the market closed. The ticker still clattered. I was staring at an inch of tape which bore the inscription XYZ negative 32. It had been 52 that morning. That's a 84 point. I have to explain this. This is an 84 point drop in the stock market. In 1929, that is devastating to the country. It is a wrap. People eating out of garbage cans. They would tell you in New York City, you know, if you ever went to school and they did this, and I know history changes all the time in school, people were smacking the pavement, jumping off the high towers of finance, which we're about to get into. Like, you would just hear people smacking the pavement, walking down the street. Like, people were killing themselves. Families were hungry. People were doing whatever they could. We're talking about, listen, a depression is crucial. 84 point drop in those days was like, it's over. I was finished, and so were many friends. That sound like me. Going to the joint again. The papers reported men jumping to death from high towers of finance. The towers of high finance. That's what I was just describing to you. That disgusted me. I would not jump. I heard about people taking their own lives and stuff like that, and that disgusted me. And I was like, I wouldn't do that. Oh man, them people are crazy. Just give me some more drugs, which is what happened to him. I went back to the bar. I went back to the block. My friends had dropped several million since 10 o'clock. So what? Don't matter. You know who I am. Wow. Tomorrow was another day. What an egotistical piece of selfish dirt I was, man. I didn't know, though. I didn't know. As I drank the old fierce determination, the wind came back. Woo! Liquid courage. We know what that feels like, and we know exactly what we're talking about there. Oh, man, the whole world's collapsing, and it's like, F it. Don't even matter. So what? I'm cool. Wow. Oh, man. Next morning, I telephoned a friend in Montreal. He had plenty of money left and thought I had better go to Canada. By the following spring, we were living in our old accustomed style. Lost everything, got his money back. I felt like Napoleon returning from Elba. No St. Helena from me. But drinking caught up with me again, and my generous friend had to let me go. I got that all highlighted. This time, I stayed broke. That's me. We went to live with my wife's parents. Just had everything. Now you're living with your wife's parents. I found a job. That's me. Then lost it. That's me too. I got that underlined as well. As the result of a brawl with a taxi driver, or not showing up, or drunk and high on the job, or stealing, you name it. I probably lost a job for all that. If I had a job. Mercifully, no one could guess that I was to have no real unemployment or no real employment for 5 years, or hardly draw a sober breath. I was freaking high every freaking day. My wife began to work in a hospital, was where my significant other was working at the time. Department store. Coming home exhausted to find me high as a kite and drunk as a skunk. I became an unwelcome hanger-on at brokerage places. For me, I became an unwelcome person on the block. I remember my friends Eddie Mahan and Aaron Owens, man, and they're both deceased. I'm not breaking into them any. They're both deceased, and they were my best friends growing up. And I remember we used to go out on the behind the Red Rose Inn in Manor Park in Newcastle. And that's where we sold drugs and stuff like that at. And then as soon as I started to get high and I became a lone wolf, like we already described in the preceding pages, or the pages before, Um, they were just like they didn't want me around no more. They was like, yo man, like yo, and they started treating me like a sucker, like I was Pookie. They was like, yo man, like get up out of here, bro. And then I would get violent and I mean all type of stuff. Liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity. I'm sure if you're the real deal, you got that highlighted and underlined. Bathtub gin. 2 bottles a day, often 3. Got to be routine. 2 trips to Philly, often 3. Got to be routine. I'm not even kidding you. This shit is crazy. Excuse my language. Sometimes a small deal would net a few $100s. I'd rip somebody off for a few $100, so of course I got that highlighted. And I would pay my bills at the bars and the delis. I would pay a drug dealer if I knew I was going to get something. If I knew anything I was going to get something, he wasn't getting paid. This went on endlessly. You should have that highlighted and underlined too. And I began to waken very early in the morning, shaking violently. I'm sure if you're a drug addict and a real alcoholic, you absolutely can relate to that. Been to Kirkwood Detox, Ellendale Detox, Key programs, Crest programs, waking up, go to jail, and I'm waking up like this. Shaking my butt off, pooping, throwing up, all that stuff. I can't stop. Man. But guess what? Give me a bag of dope or a bottle of gin, right? Tumbler filled, followed by 6 bottles of beer will be required. If I were to even eat breakfast, if I was even to eat something, I had to have something in me. I wasn't going to work. I wasn't eating. I wasn't getting out of bed until I had something in me. Of course, I got all that highlighted and underlined. Nevertheless, oh my gosh. Nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation. Does that sound familiar to you? I still thought I can control this. All this stuff is going on, and yet I still tell myself, I got this. I got this. And there were periods of sobriety which renewed my family's hope. I'd go to, I remember going to different rehabs and detoxes and stuff like that, and they were like, man, he's in treatment. My brother in a hospital, whatever, always, whatever. I'll keep it to myself. I would get out and they'd be like, oh man, he did it. He went to treatment, and they don't know, they don't have an experience with this thing, so they think the same thing that we think, especially in the beginning, is if I go to detox or whatever, then I'll just get off of the drugs and I'll be fine, and somehow I'll gain this mental control again and I'll be okay. I'll exert my power of will and be fine. Has that happened for you? Gradually, things got worse, of course. Of course, I got that highlighted, underlined. The house was taken over by the mortgage holder. That happened to me. It was my girl's house, but the house. My mother-in-law died, and wife and father-in-law became ill. Then I got a promising business opportunity. My cousin gave me, a lot of you know my story. My cousin gave me a job at his company. It was like local. He worked in the local, but he had his own business. But it was a union company, Local 74, and I was like, man, I got a promising business opportunity, man. This is great. Fresh out the Bing again. I'm okay. Stocks were at the low point in 1932, and I had somehow formed a group to buy. I was to share generously in the profits. Sounded like me a little bit, but I also highlighted and underlined this part. Then I had this great business opportunity. Then I went on a ridiculous bender, and that chance vanished right before my eyes. I wrecked his van into a telephone pole. I put diesel fuel in a not diesel truck, and more stuff because I was up for days, no sleep, trying to go to work, stealing stuff out the back. Of course, that chance vanished. if you don't have this highlighted, I would encourage you to maybe try some therapy. I'm just kidding around, but I'm saying for real now. I woke up. How can you not have this highlighted, underlined? I woke up. This had to be stopped. I seen I could not take so much as one drink, hit, pill, anything. I was through forever. It's done. I'm never going to do this again. I am done. Remember saying that? I am never doing this again. Before then, I had written lots of sweet promises. I know I said this before. I know I told y'all I ain't coming back again to the prison. I know I told you, Mom, that this time, but this time is different. And I had everybody convinced of that. I had talked to them, and I sound completely, I sound like I know what I'm talking about. Well, this is where I messed up last time, and I would even have this great scenario on where I went wrong. I've written lots of sweet promises, but my family and my wife and everybody around me observed that this time I was serious and I meant business. And so I did. Next line. Shortly afterward, I came home drunk. Man. Shortly afterward, I was just like, I was done. I am never doing this again, I swear. And I get out the joint, man, and like, give me 20 minutes. And I get that restless, irritable, and all I think about is ease and comfort at once. Ease and comfort at once. And in no time, I come home high. Just like that, man. Shortly afterward, I come home drunk. There ain't been no fight. Where had been my high resolve, where I was just saying, like, this is what I'm going to do. I know exactly what to do this time. I simply didn't know. It hadn't even come to mind. Someone had pushed a drink my way, and I had taken it. Was I crazy? That's me. I'm thinking I'm seeing other people okay. They're not facing the same impunity I am, which is with theirs is without consequences. They're drinking with impunity. Me, I drink and it's over. I go to jail and all that stuff. And they get out and I know I can't do what they do and then I do it again. Am I nuts? There must be something wrong with me. I had chalked it up. So that, of course, there goes a long line of therapy and counseling and all that stuff and therapists and psychologists and medications. Like I knew there was something wrong up here. Was I crazy? I began to wonder if for such an appalling lack of perspective seemed near being just that. Renewing my resolve. I tried again. I got it this time. I went to rehab. I started to go to meetings. Of course, I got this highlighted. I went to rehab. I got out. I started to go to meetings. I don't know nothing about steps or what the program is really about. The program in my mind was go to a meeting, leave, go to a meeting, come back to the meeting tomorrow. And I had some time and confidence began to be replaced by cocksureness. And I started to sell drugs and venture into the music community. I would laugh at the gin mills. And now that I sell drugs and I'm a big time drug dealer, I'm like, y'all can't tell me nothing. I beat this. And that was sincerely my thinking. I could laugh at the gin mills and the people who were getting high. Now I had what it takes. Of course, I got all this highlighted and underlined. One day, I walked into my friend's cafe on the telephone, and in no time, I was beating on the bar asking myself, how did I do this again? As the whiskey or the dope or the coke or the pills rose to my head, I told myself, I'll manage better next time. I'll quit tomorrow. I just won't do it 3 days in a row. But I might as well get good and effed up right now. And I did. Of course, I got this highlighted. The remorse, the horror, and the hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. Remember that? I was just like, after you tried and you knew and you had this plan and you were doing well and you got clean and sober for like a month or two or whatever, how many months or even a year or whatever, Casey, a year, and then all of a sudden, like, just like that, man, I'm thinking everything's good, and then when I did do it, I woke up and was just like, oh my God. The remorse, the horror, and the hopelessness in the next morning were unforgettable. The courage to do battle was not there. Pay attention to Bill's condition, just like we were paying attention to the people in the back of the doctor's opinions condition. Let's pay attention to his condition. He's in a hopeless condition. Remorse, horror, hopelessness, unforgettable morning. The courage to do battle, not there. Brain raced uncontrollably, and there was a terrible sense of impending calamity. I'm sure you have all this highlighted. I hardly dared cross the street, lest I collapse and be run down by an early morning truck, for it was scarcely daylight. An all-night place supplied me with man, up all night, and I just looking around and somebody gave me something. All-night place supplied me with a dozen glasses of ale. My withering nerves, I got off E, is what we used to call it. My withering nerves were still at last. A morning paper told me the market had gone to hell again. Now we going into the depression. Well, so had I. The market will recover, but I wouldn't. I knew that. I remember me and my boy Bucky, man, were in jail. And we were passing each other, and I think it was either him or I were on our way out. And he said, "Yo, you bouncing?" And I was like, "Yeah," because we were always in jail together. It's where we always ended up. And he said, "Are you?" I said it to him, or he said it to me, and I said, "Yo, man, are you heading home, man? What, you bagging baggage?" And he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm going on vacation." Or I said, "Yeah, man, I'm going on vacation," because that's what like going home was the vacation. I knew I wasn't going to be there long. Unbelievable, man. The market will recover, but I wouldn't. That was a hard thought. Should I kill myself? Remember, people were jumping off the towers of high finance. I would never do nothing like that. I'm going to go get drunk. I'm cool. Now, getting beaten, right? We're talking about that brokenness, beaten into a state of reasonableness where I'm finally like, now the thought of like killing myself is coming up. Should I kill myself? ? No, not now. Then the mental fog settled down. Gin would fix that. Of course it would. So 2 bottles and oblivion. I just got to get out of this hopelessness, remorse, horror, no courage to do battle. I got to get out of that. The mind and body are marvelous mechanisms, for mine endured this agony for 2 more years. I endured it for 2 years. But I can't say it was 2 years. I endured the agony. My periods home were very brief. So yeah, I got that highlighted. Sometimes I stole from my wife's or my mom's slender purse or stole from anybody or robbed anybody around me when the morning terror and madness were on me. When that thing is on me and I ain't got no means of money, anybody could get it, and I would do anything I had to. I remember walking out of Wawa's like I had elephantitis in the legs because I would stuff my pants with Red Bulls all the way down my thing just so I could sell them to the bottle bodega down the street. Crazy, man. Again, I swayed dizzily before an open window. Remember, I would never kill myself. 2. Should I kill myself? 2. Now I sway dizzily in front of a window. Or, of course, I got this highlighted, underlined, and you should too. Or the medicine cabinet where there were poison. Cursing myself. What do you think that was? He's in front of the medicine cabinet looking for poison drugs. Cursing himself for a weakling. There was flights from city to country and back. Remember that? If I just get out of here, people, places, and things, you know, if I just get out of here, I'll be okay. Remember that? City from the country and back. As my wife and I sought escape, I just got to get out of here. If I get away from these people, I'll be fine. Then came the night, because he put himself in a place where it was impossible for him to get anything. And when that thing started, that detox starts, whew, the night came when my physical and mental torture was so hellish. Of course, I got this highlighted, underlined. I feared I would burst through my window sash and all. Now he's so scared he's going to kill himself that he drags his mattress downstairs lest he leap out the window. I managed to drag my mattress to a lower floor lest I suddenly leapt. A doctor came with heavy sedative, drugs. Next day found me drinking both gin and drugs. This combination, as we all know, if you're like me and you got like multiple substance problems, soon landed me on the rocks. Of course it did. People feared for my sanity, and so did I. Of course, I got all this highlighted. This is me, man. I could eat little or nothing when drinking, and I was 40 pounds underweight. Oh my gosh. I'm the only dude who goes to detox. I'm not the only one. You probably are too. I go to detox. I'm 40 pounds underweight. I've been up for freaking 9 months straight. I'm seeing shadow people. I've been shooting dope, smoking coke, and drinking the whole freaking time. I get to detox. My face is sunk in, and I go there. I see a chick that I think is half-ass cute, and I think to myself, I over-exaggerated. I don't belong here. Why am I here? This is just crazy. I can't believe that I'm not like these people. Unbelievable, man. Oh, man. So, my brother-in-law, my mom's insurance specifically, and she is a physician, and thought his kindness of that of my mother, I was placed in a nationally known hospital. I do have experience with that. My mom's, when I was 18, my mom's insurance sent me to Father Martin's Ashley, nationally known hospital, for the mental and physical rehabilitation of alcoholics, and that's what it was. Under the so-called belladonna treatment, my brain cleared. Hydrotherapy and mild exercise helped much. I remember all this. Best of all, I met a kind doctor who explained that though certainly selfish and foolish, I had been seriously ill bodily and mentally. It relieved me somewhat to learn that in alcoholics the will is amazingly weakened when it comes to combating liquor, though it often remains strong in other respects. Of course I got that highlighted. My will's cool in other respects. My incredible behavior in the face of the desperate desire to stop was explained. Oh, I get it. I'm not an idiot. I'm not retarded. I literally thought there was something wrong with me. Understanding myself now, right? Because I done went to the Key program and studied Terence Gorski and freaking learned about the developmental models of recovery and the 6 stages of DMR and triggers and the biopsychosocial dependency on mood-altering substances and all that stuff, right? I'm good now. Understanding myself now, I feared froth and high hope. I got it this time. For 3 or 4 months, the goose hung high as it did I don't know how many times. I went to town regularly. I even had a job and made a little bit of money, and getting a job for me was like nonsense. Surely this was the answer, self-knowledge. But it was not. Check that out, very next line. But it was not. For the frightful day came when I drank again. The curve of my decline in moral and bodily health fell off like a ski jump. After a time, I returned back to the prison. This was the finish, the curtain it seemed for me. Of course, I highlight that. Mine, it says return to the hospital. I returned to them too, but most of the time where I returned was prison. My weary and despairing wife was informed that it would all end with heart failure and delirium tremens, DTs. Or I would develop a wet brain perhaps within a year. He's overhearing the wife talking to the doctor, and he's hearing all this. She would soon have to give me over to the undertaker or the asylum. Remember this feeling? Well, I remember this feeling particularly. They did not need to tell me. I knew, and I almost welcomed the idea. Just take me out, man. Like, just take me. I don't want to spend the rest of my life in jail. Just like, man, I'd rather die, man. It was a devastating blow to my pride. I, who had thought so well of myself and my abilities, of my capacity to surmount obstacles and like get money and like do stuff that other people couldn't, was cornered at last. Now I was to plunge into the dark, joining the endless procession of sots, the lifers. For me, I was going to join the lifers who had gone on before me. The lifers, the people that were doing life in prison, that were telling me, Matt, you're going to be here with us. I thought of my poor mom. I know it says wife, but I've thought of my poor mom. There had been much happiness after all. I loved my mom. What would I not give to make an amends to my mom? But that was over now. No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I had found. Pay attention to his condition. The loneliness and the despair that I found in the bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched all around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had given up. All around me, quicksand. I don't see a way out. There isn't no, I'm going to try this rehab, or I'm going to try to take this medication. I'm going to try this detox. I'm going to try to move here. I've tried all of them, and none of them has been effective. It's quicksand everywhere. I don't see anything left. That's it. There ain't no shot left. I tried them all multiple times. Of course, I got that highlighted. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. That's Bill's first step, and it was also mine. Trembling, I stepped from the hospital a broken man. That's his condition. Fear sobered me for a bit. I'm going to go to jail for the rest of my life if I get high. I'm going to be dead over here at Good Samaritan Hospital if I do this again. I'm going to die tonight. Then came the insidious insanity of that first drink. Do you have this highlighted? You know? I'm like, I know I'm going to die or spend the rest of my life in jail. I got the consequences are right in my face. I have experience with the consequences. And the insidious insanity of the first one gets me again. And on Armistice Day of 1934, I just highlighted I was off again. Everyone became resigned. My mom, my dad, my daughter, everybody. Everyone became resigned to the certainty that I would have to be shut up somewhere or would stumble along to a miserable end. How dark it was before the dawn. Thank God for that brokenness. If quicksand wasn't stretched all around me and there was no other way out, I would have tried it. If I even seen a glimmer of hope anywhere. But trying everything and being, man, if you feel that way, good. It sucks when you're there, but that's the most amazing place to be. How dark it is before the dawn. In reality, that was the beginning of my last debauch. I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence, the feeling of being whole, all as one. I was to know happy. Oh my gosh, this is my life today. I was to know happiness. I do. Peace. I do. And usefulness. I do. In a way that is incredibly wonderful as time passes. That, I swear to you, is the honest to God truth. So that's the truth of this. Near the end of that bleak November, usually we would stop here. I'm going to go into, let me see what time frame. Oh, yeah, I'll try to get here real quick just so you know about the Ebby Thatcher thing and where it came from. So that's where we would stop. Near the end of the bleak November, I sat in my kitchen with a certain satisfaction and reflection that there was enough drugs and concealed around the house to carry me through that night and the next day. Remember that? Yeah, this would get me through to until tomorrow. I'm good all the way till next week, and you can't get through that night. My wife was at work. I wondered whether I dared hide a bottle of gin at the head of her bed. I would need it before daylight. Of course I had stuff. If Crystal found something, she'd do it, so I had to hide it from her. My musing was interrupted by the telephone. Ring, ring. The cheery voice of an old school friend, Ebby Thatcher, who we were talking about in the beginning, in the forewords, asked me if he might come over. He was sober. Remember page 263, Ebby Thatcher went through the 6 steps of the Oxford group. He was sober. So if Bill, just so you know, if Bill and Bob are the ones that created the 12-step fellowship and Alcoholics Anonymous, and this guy comes over, he was sober, who were they talking about? The Oxford group is where most of this stuff came from. And that came from the Bible. So we got Oxford group, the 6 steps of the Oxford group. They're on page 263. Check them out. He was years since I could remember him coming to New York in that condition. I was amazed. Why was he amazed? Because the rumor had it that he had been committed for alcoholic insanity. He was about to lock his ass up and throw away the key. I wondered how he had escaped. How did this dude escape? Of course we would have dinner, then I would drink openly with him. He's just like me. I know him. He's my childhood friend. Unmindful of his welfare, I thought he was coming over to reminisce about the old days. There was that time we had chartered an airplane to complete a jag. His coming was an oasis in a dreary desert of futility. That very thing, an oasis. Drinkers are like that. I want somebody with me. The door opened. This is so important. It's what you're looking for in a sponsor. My whole circle. This is what I want. The door opened and he stood there. He opens the door. He don't even say nothing. He stood there, fresh-skinned and glowing. There was something about his eyes. He was inexplicably different. He ain't even say a word. Bill opens the door and knows something's going on with his friend. What had happened? Question mark. I pushed a drink across the table, offered him a hit. He refused it. Disappointed but curious, I wondered what had gotten into this fellow. He wasn't himself. Come on, man. What's all this about? I asked. He looked straight at me simply but smiling. He said, I've got religion, because the 6 steps of the Oxford group was a religious program. Oxford group was a religious program, as we described in the beginning. I was aghast, so that was it. Last summer, an alcoholic crackpot. Now I suspected a little cracked about religion. He had that steely-eyed look. Yeah, the old boy was on fire, all right, but bless his heart. Let him rant. Besides, my gin will last a lot longer than his preaching. But he ain't go there to preach. He ain't do no ranting. He ain't do no preaching. In a matter-of-fact way, he told how 2 men, one of them being Roland Hazard, which we'll get into in the next chapter on Saturday, 2 men showed up to court and asked the judge and persuaded the judge to suspend his commitment. They had the simple religious idea and practical program of action. 2 months. That was 2 months ago, and the result was self-evident. It worked. You're talking about we don't gotta wait 5 years, do a step a year. You mean to tell me I don't have to wait 20 years and get 20 years sober before I feel better? Listen, if you think that I've been here for 3+ years now, and I'm holding on to my chair, gripping and clawing at each and every day, trying not to use and drink and get high, you are wrong. You bumped your head. I'd have got high a long time ago. I got relief from that by the work. And how fast you do the work is up to you, So there's where Roland Hazard and Ebby Thatcher come in. I wanted to explain that before we moved on. So next week, you can read on through Bill's story, man. Check it out. But next week, we're going to start on, Saturday, we'll start in there as a solution. Or I will say this though, if you want to know what a meeting is about, it's on the very bottom line of page 15. Not go to meetings and this is what the meeting is about. We meet frequently so the newcomers may find the fellowship they seek. That's what the meeting is about. It's for the newcomers to find us and us to find them. God bless y'all, man. Love you and good night.